In a world dominated by men, one woman dared to defy convention and change the course of history. Meet Abigail, the brilliant and beautiful wife of Nabal, a wealthy and surly landowner. When her husband's foolishness threatened to spark a bloody conflict, Abigail took matters into her own hands, using her wit, courage, and faith to defuse the situation and save countless lives. Join me as we uncover the fascinating story of Abigail, a true heroine of the Bible, whose remarkable wisdom and grace continue to inspire and empower women to this day. Abigail stands out for a number of reasons. As a woman of beauty and brains, Abigail counsels David, prophesies his kingship, and becomes one of his wives who is actually named. Her character shows us that women of God can be humble, wise, and diplomatic. Abigail possessed beauty, wealth, and wisdom, yet her seemingly blissful marriage concealed a nightmarish reality. During Abigail's time, young women lacked the privilege of selecting their life partners. It's likely that her father chose Nabal as a spouse for his beautiful daughter, primarily due to his substantial wealth. Nabal, whose name ironically meant fool, was marked by alcoholism and cruelty. We see in 1 Samuel 25 that David enters the picture. Then David moved down into the desert of Paran. A certain man in Maon, who had property there at Carmel, was very wealthy. He had 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband was surly and mean in his dealings. He was a Calebite. Traditionally, landowners would show gratitude to those who safeguarded their livestock and shepherds from threats like thieves and wolves. David and his men had dutifully fulfilled this role in safeguarding Nabal and his flocks. Therefore, David expressed, "Go up to Nabal at Carmel and greet him in my name. Say to him, 'Long life to you, good health to you and your household, and good health to all that is yours. Now I hear that it is sheep shearing time. When your shepherds were with us, we did not mistreat them, and the whole time they were at Carmel nothing of theirs was missing. Ask your own servants, and they will tell you. Therefore be favorable toward my men, since we come at a festive time. Please give your servants and your son David whatever you can find for them." But Nabal responds to David with insults and drives David to want to kill Nabal. Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse? Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Why should I take my bread and water, and the meat I have slaughtered for my shearers, and give it to men coming from who knows where? It's been useless. All my watching over this fellow's property in the wilderness so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back evil for good. May God deal with David, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave alive one male of all who belong to him." This is where we see Abigail step into the picture. Abigail is described as a woman of beauty and brains. Her speech to David is filled with wisdom and spiritual understanding. Abigail's religious testimony and familiarity with Jewish history suggest that she received early education in a devout household. Her acquaintance with the teachings of Israel's prophets further confirms this. Additionally, her appeal to David demonstrates her comprehension of the current events in her society. David is, of course, taken by her good looks, but she advises him not to take rash actions, even after he vowed to kill Nabal and Nabal's family after Nabal insults him. After her courageous intervention to prevent David from taking vengeance on her household, Abigail's insights and prophetic understanding become even more evident. Her ability to foresee David's future as the king of Israel and her counsel for him to wait upon the Lord's judgment, rather than taking matters into his own hands, showcases her deep spiritual insight and faith. This act of faith and wisdom on her part not only averts a disastrous conflict but solidifies her position as a figure of moral and spiritual guidance in the biblical texts. Abigail also tells David not to slay Nabal because God would do the vengeance if only David would wait on the Lord. Abigail's intervention prevents an attack. Her mention of God's vengeance and her prediction of David's kingship indicate a level of spiritual intuition or prophetic gifting that is recognized and respected by David. This interaction highlights the importance of wise and godly counsel in achieving God's purposes and the value of patience and faith in God's justice. Following her intervention, The narrative takes a dramatic turn with the sudden death of Nabal, Abigail's husband, from what is described as a heart attack. This event is interpreted as divine retribution for Nabal's folly and refusal to assist David. It's noteworthy that Abigail's actions not only save her household from immediate destruction, but also pave the way for her future. Upon Abigail's return from meeting with David, Nabal dies of a heart attack. David hears of the news and takes Abigail to be his wife. When David learns of Nabal's death, he recognizes the hand of God in the events that unfolded and sees in Abigail a woman of virtue and wisdom. Moved by her intelligence and godliness, David sends for Abigail, and she becomes his wife. This marriage is significant in several ways. Firstly, it highlights the divine endorsement of David's future reign, as Abigail, a woman of prophetic insight, becomes his supporter and confidant. Secondly, it reflects the theme of divine justice and providence that runs through David's story, as Abigail is brought into a position of influence and security by the very wisdom that saved her household. Abigail's marriage to David is not just a personal elevation, but also a strategic alliance that further cements David's path to the throne. As his wife, Abigail's wisdom and prophetic gifts likely continued to influence David, contributing to his success as a leader and king. Her story underscores the importance of godly wisdom, the power of intercession, and the belief in divine timing and justice, themes that are as relevant today as they were in biblical times. So, what lessons can we learn from Abigail's story? 1. Conflict resolution. Abigail found herself in a precarious situation when her husband, Nabal, offended David and his men. Instead of reacting impulsively or escalating the conflict, she took decisive action. She quickly gathered provisions and went to meet David, who was heading to seek revenge against Nabal. 2. Diplomatic approach. Abigail approached David and his men with humility and diplomacy. She acknowledged their grievances and took responsibility for her husband's actions, even though she had no control over them. Her words were respectful and tactful, seeking to de-escalate the situation. 3. Offering peace. Abigail brought gifts and provisions to David, appealing to his sense of reason and righteousness. She sought peace and reconciliation, emphasizing that taking revenge would harm his reputation and relationship with God. 4. Trust in God. Abigail's actions demonstrated her trust in God's ultimate justice. She believed that God would handle Nabal's wrongdoing and didn't resort to violence or revenge. Her faith and trust in God's sovereignty were evident in her calm demeanor. 5. Wisdom and persuasion. Abigail's speech to David was not only conciliatory but also wise and persuasive. She reminded David of his destiny and the importance of maintaining a blameless reputation. Her words convinced David to change his course of action and spare Nabal and his household. 6. Respectful departure. After persuading David to relent, Abigail respectfully withdrew from the situation, allowing David to save face and avoid unnecessary bloodshed. She returned to Nabal and waited until the right moment to inform him of what had transpired. In the face of a brewing conflict, Abigail's calm, diplomatic, and wise approach not only prevented violence but also showcased her character and faith. Her actions serve as an example of how wisdom, humility, and trust in God can help defuse tense situations and promote peace.